Religion is the basis of civil society and the source of all good and of all comfort. Edmund Burke, Irish statesman. Because I agree with Edmund Burke, I affirm, on balance, societies benefit from religious belief and practice. A few definitions need to be clarified for this round. Religion, an organized system of beliefs, ceremonies, and rules used to worship a god or a group of gods. Merriam-Webster. Society, people in general thought of as living together in organized communities with shared laws, traditions, and values. Merriam-Webster. Benefit, something that produces good or helpful results or effects that promote well-being, also from Merriam-Webster. Belief, a state or habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. Merriam-Webster. The feeling of being certain. Practice, action rather than thought or ideas. Cambridge Dictionary. And on balance, with all things considered. The framework for this debate is the net beneficial effects of religion on society. If negative proves that religion is bad for society, then they win this debate. But when affirmative proves that religion is beneficial for society, then affirmative wins. I have 2 reasons why you should vote for affirmative. 1, religion encourages altruistic behaviors. And 2, religion economically benefits society. Contention 1, religion encourages altruistic behaviors. Nonprofit Pro states, religious people are more generous than non-believers when it comes to giving charity, according to research by the BBC. This found that the people who profess religious belief are more likely to give to charity than non-believers. These results came from a poll of over 3,000 people, of those with or without faith. Meissner says, when researchers document how people spend their hours and their money, religious Americans look very different from others. They found that among Americans who attend services weekly and pray daily, 45% had done volunteer work during the previous week. Among all other Americans, only 27% had volunteered somewhere else. These cards show that religious people are more likely to give to charity and participate in volunteer work. These are both examples of altruistic behaviors and show that religious people are more likely to be altruistic. Jonathan Sachs says, religion creates community. Community creates altruism, and altruism turns us away from self and towards the common good. This card shows that religion creates altruism. Altruism then turns us towards the good of the society. Berkeley.edu says, altruism enhances our personal well-being, emotionally, physically, and perhaps even financially. It's also crucial to stable and healthy communities. Altruism creates a better society with all the list of benefits. Religion produces these benefits and therefore benefits society. Contention 2. Religion economically benefits society. Religion benefits society economically from both profit and productivity. The American economy benefits to the tune of $2.6 trillion per year thanks to being quite a religious country. That is about 1/6 of our total economic output. Forbes. Economist Barrow McCleary suggests that high rates of religious belief stimulate growth because they help to sustain aspects of individual behavior that enhance productivity. Their claim is that religious beliefs stimulate growth. The warrant is that encourages altruistic behavior that enhances productivity. And the impact is it helps the economy because you have more productivity. This benefits society. Therefore, my contention upholds my framework. In conclusion, religion benefits society in 2 main ways. 1, religion encourages altruistic behaviors. This causes religious people to give and volunteer more. 2, religion economically benefits society. Religion causes an increase in productivity and gains American around $2.6 trillion every year. And for these reasons, vote affirmative.
I negate the resolution. Resolved. On balance, society benefits from religious belief and practice. I agree with my opponent's definitions. But I'd just like to clarify something with the framework of today's debate. Today's debate, benefit will be defined as an increase in happiness. So as negative, I must show that religious belief and practice decrease overall happiness. And I offer 2 contentions to show that religion harms human happiness. First, if there is a true religion, other religions lead away from it. It's a simple fact that religions often disagree with each other. Christians believe that Christ was the incarnate form of God, and Muslims and Jews do not, and neither do Hindus or Buddhists. Religions often differ, and according to Pew Research Center, 84% of the world is religious. And also, according to Pew Research Center, the largest religion is Christianity, with 31.4% of the total population. and around 37.6% of the religious population, which means there is no one religion that makes up a majority of the religious population. Which means if we accept a religion is true, it must detract from the truth. Then religion as a whole detracts from truth in general. If we accept that these things cannot accept each other according to the law of non-contradiction, then we must accept that religion as a whole, on balance, removes from truth, which causes damages. My second contention is religion causes conflict, and it causes it in three ways. First, it causes division. Religion provides people with a unique incentive structure in their lives to have conflict with others. Make Phillips 18. As a radical sect of Buddhist nationalists persecute the Rohingya Muslim minority in Myanmar, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict wages on, and a film challenging the Orthodox Church spurs violent protests in Russia. It seems asserting sovereignty is the only thing the world's religions can agree on today. In a recent Best Country survey of more than 21,000 people from all religions of the world, a majority of respondents identified religion as the primary source of most global conflict today. Spiritual beliefs create an inherent us versus them scenario, experts say. When societies shatter, they generally shatter along tribal lines. And people are seeing themselves as irretrievably different from their neighbors, says Sam Harris, a neuroscientist and philosopher. The divisions created by religion are deeper and potentially more harmful than those formed through other aspects of identity, such as race, nationality, or political affiliations. Experts say religion often becomes the master variable and provides unique reward structure. If you believe the thoughts you harbor in this life and the doctrines you adhere to spell the difference between eternity spent in fire or one spent on the right hand of God, that raises the stakes beyond any other reward structure on earth. Second, religion often causes cultural violence and terrorism. Religious discrimination and violence is widespread in the modern world. According to Pew Research Center, in 2018, more than a quarter of the world's countries experienced a high incidence of hostilities motivated by religious hatred, mob violence related to religion, terrorism, and harassment of women for violating religious codes. And even without full-scale conflict, religion promotes aggression and low-scale violence, like political oppression and terrorism, Meissner 97. To further their interests, religious organizations make use of low-scale violence, political oppression, and terrorism. Salman Rushdie or Taslim Nazrin in Bangladesh were forced into hiding from Muslim fundamentalists who wanted to punish them with death. Each religion has its own fanatic religious fundamentalists. The Koch party used tactics of abusing and physically attacking Palestinians. Gahan believed in perpetual war and preached intolerance against Arabs. Intolerance is also spawned by some Islamic organizations, like the Egyptian Jama'at al-Islamiyya, Lebanon's Hezbollah, or Algeria's Islamic fundamentalists. All pursue a policy of violent confrontation based on the convention that armed struggle is a necessary and appropriate response to the enemies of God. And finally, religion causes war. Religion has consistently created conflict between groups. Its wars are also unique and distinct from non-religious ones in that they often cannot be compromised. Meissner 97. There's just a couple of examples of religious war that I would like to bring up. First, Myanmar versus Buddhists versus Christians. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Jews versus Arabs, and Muslims versus Christians. Northern Ireland with Catholics versus Protestants. Philippines with Muslims versus Christians. Lebanon with Shiites versus Shiites. As we can see, there's religious conflicts and wars among all religions, and even within religions themselves causing war. And so, religion causes war, and that causes suffering, and so we must negate. And so for these reasons, I strongly urge negative count. Alright, examination.
All in the time begins now. May I have the first question?
Yes, since you were at.
May I ask, do you have any solid numbers of how many people die from these religious conflicts?
Well, I can give you some examples of religious conflicts where I can give you specific numbers. For example, there was recent riots in Delhi, which led to 32 people being killed. There was the Armenian genocide, which led to millions of Armenians dying. The Catholic Inquisition, which is an example of religious repression, killed 50 million people. Jihadist attacks killed more than 5,000 people in just 1 month, according to an investigation by the BBC World Service and King's College. So it kills plenty of people and causes suffering.
Alright, you can have a question.
Alright. So your first one, your second contention is religion economically benefits society, right?
Yes.
And you bring up the example of America being a highly religious society and being relatively wealthy.
Yes.
And America is your only example of this happening?
Well, what my card states, it isn't that it's because America's wealthy and because America's religious, that means it's wealthy. What it's saying is, since it's religious, it gains around 2.6 trillion extra dollars per year.
And so this religious benefit to wealth, how has it affected Afghanistan?
Well, obviously, not all countries this can be applied to because of other factors, considering like America being within a lot of these Middle Eastern countries. So these can like skew the results into it.
So how has this religious nature benefited the other religious countries like India? So if it only benefited America, wouldn't that make America just an exceptional example, not the rule when it comes to religion?
I mean, it's a general trend that this happens.
General trend. And did you have numbers to support that, or is it only your America card?
My America card and also my card that says it increases productivity, which generally leads
And who
to
said that?
better. Barrow and McClary.
Barrow McClary.
Yes.
And he just said that.
Well, it's two different people. It's Barrow and McClary.
All right. We can have a question.
Yes. So your framework is an increase in happiness or decrease in happiness.
Yes.
How does your contentions link to this?
How do my contentions link to this? Well, the first contention, there's massive suffering if you get the questions of reality wrong. If, let's just say, Christianity is true and you're a Muslim, well, then you go to hell. And I would assume that is I know it's a very bad result and it produces happiness.
Right. Well,
And then, final question. Your religion encourages altruism cards. They're all relative to America, correct?
I believe. My cards don't necessarily state that they're specific to America.
Does
At least the one does, but the other one, the one compiled by the BBC, does not necessarily.
Okay.
All right, that concludes our questioning segment. I like now. First, let's talk about my opponent's framework. My opponent's framework was an increase in happiness. Now, for the sake of this debate and considering that both of our frameworks are pretty similar, I will accept his framework and we will use it for the rest of the debate. Now let's move on to my opponent's first contention. Other religions lead away from the true religion. So what my opponent is saying is that if there is a true religion, then other religions detract from that, and that causes supposed harms. But if you look at it, he never gives solid numbers of a decrease in happiness. What he's talking about is in potential harms. Is saying that, if they're wrong, then they will be harmed. But what we're debating today is what it has on society, what it has on what's happening today. So when we look at it, you have to realize that it doesn't matter what the future harms in like supernatural life, if that happens, or like for whatever religion it would be for, but we have to look at what's happening in society today. So if we look at society today, the many religions does not cause the harms that my opponent suggests. And he never quite states the harms that many different religions cause, or a decrease in happiness, which is his own framework. Now, number two, his second contention was that religions cause conflict. He cites plenty of examples of this, including Israel and Palestine, which this could have a lot more to do with political reasons and have to do with borders and stuff like that instead of religion. And so to say it's solely because of religion, it would be ridiculous. And so you'd have to also take in other factors that could cause these conflicts. He also talks about how religion is the primary source of conflict, but I believe I have a block for that. if I can find it somewhere. I'll just move on for the time being. He talks about how there's political oppression, which has actually to do with politics, not religion. So to say it's merely religion that's causing the source of conflict would be ridiculous. And he talks about Christians and their conflicts with other people. But also, if you notice, in a lot of these religious texts that give the people their code to live by, a lot of them don't focus on actually these things. They are just construed from their meanings, and so they're not actually in the text. For example, in the Bible, there's very few texts saying that you should go kill others who don't believe in your religion. This can be, but other people who have looked at this religion have taken that out of where it's not in the text and should not be used because it's not actually practicing what the religion says or what it means. So if you look at my opponent's case, what you realize is he's debating on the fact that the potential benefits or harms of multiple religions and the supposed conflicts that could be more political and actually have to do with being misconstrued from the religious text. For these reasons, vote
a minute. So I will begin by addressing my opponent's case, and then moving on to my case. Alright.
Starting with your case, correct?
I'm starting with your case. I'm starting with Age's case, and then moving on to my case. Let us begin. I again negate the resolution resolved, and then religious belief and practice are net beneficial to society. So let me address my opponent's contentions. His first contention is that religion encourages altruism. A lot of these cards are American specific. And we could easily argue that America has a black swan event, and he hasn't shown that this is a result of religion itself and not simply American culture. We also see giving by religious people often helps religion itself more than it helps the people who are actually in need. According to studies, the entire 9% difference between religious giving and non-religious giving is attributed to the religious giving to congregations and religious organizations. So yes, religion does cause people to give to religion itself, meaning it's a self-serving giving instead of a giving to society. And we can also see that in the final cards, he says that religion turns us to our community, which turns us to the common good, which causes us to give more. These are just quotes. And again, this is very America specific. We don't see an outpouring of giving from countries torn by war caused by religion. And then the second contention is that religion economically benefits the countries in which it's emphasizing. Again, his only examples from America and one quote from an expert, which again is just a quote with no evidence behind showing why religion would lead to these economic benefits. But we can also see that religion has a lot of economic negatives. If we think about the wealthiest countries in the world, for example, Europe and Canada and America, we can often see that most of them are actually rapidly becoming more secular than they are being religious. We can see this in Europe especially. And then we can also see that comparing countries, we can see that this example is America only, American being an exceptional example, an exception to the rule. Moving on to my opponent's attacks on my case. First, he accepts my framework. So our goal of today's debate is providing the most happiness. My first contention was on that religions cannot all be true. He says, I need solid numbers. Well, I did provide solid numbers. I provided there is no religion with a majority over things. But the thing is, this is not exactly a basic, this is the statistics card. This is a philosophical argument. As we can see, according to the law of non-contradiction, there is no religion that contains a majority of religious people. And even if religion isn't true, that means all of religion is leading away from the true result. which means that religion as a whole will always lead away from the truth and for progress through that lens. And he says all these harms are potential, but these harms are actual in every circumstance. Say the Buddhists are right. Well, then people will have bad karma because they do not accept the Buddhist beliefs because they were Muslim, Christian, or a different religion. I'll just say Hinduism is true. Hinduism has a hell. It means people will go to hell when they didn't have to. I'll just say Christianity is true. Again, there's a hell. Islam, a hell. People will suffer, and they will always suffer because of religion on balance. Moving on to the second contention. He says it has more to do with political reasons, but he didn't provide a card saying this. Again, all his attacks here are uncarded. And he says political oppression is political, not religious. But I brought up the example of the Catholic Inquisition, which was done by a religious body. And religions have effects on political oppression and political wars. And finally, he brings up the fact that it's bad actors misusing religion, but that is still an effect of religion. Bad actors misusing it. So we can still see the results and their negative effects. So for these reasons, I strongly urge a negative ballot.
Okay. You mentioned that it has actual harms, but how does this have an effect on society as in the current state today?
Well, I feel like people going to hell is a negative effect on society. As society is a general term for the collection of people inside it. Society isn't,
You mentioned the Catholic Inquisition. Wouldn't you agree that this also has to do with them being misconstrued from the religious text?
well, actually, if you look at the Catholic teachings, they also emphasize the importance of church traditions. And many church philosophers agreed that putting down heretics was in accordance with the Bible.
And where in the Bible does it say that they should put down heretics?
Again, you need to show the part in the Bible where it says, see, I cannot show every portion, but there are. So for example, I believe Augustine, a famous church father, believed that you are allowed to repress and harm heretics. Aquinas believed that. So these are important church fathers that highly affected. Both of them are sainted, and both of them affect church tradition and church beliefs.
All right, you may have a question.
All right. So for your attacks on my second contention, did you quote any cards?
Well, you mentioned it yourself that it's political oppression, not just...
I said religious repression.
No, I believe in your actual speech you said political oppression caused by religion, but this has mostly to do with political reasons.
So you're saying that the religion caused political oppression is not actually religion caused, even though you don't have a card to quote. Say that?
Well, yes.
All right. You have a question.
All right. You mentioned that that since countries are becoming secular, that means they are becoming wealthier. Is that correct?
I'm saying the wealthiest countries are becoming secular.
Are these the wealthiest countries?
Yeah, if you look at those atheistic nations, the countries in like Norway, Finland, Sweden, they're some of the wealthiest.
Okay. So does this mean that there's a... Also, you also mentioned that my card that said that America religious economically benefits from religion was bad because it's only from one expert. This is from Forbes, which is a...
I didn't say it was from one expert. The
Yeah.
reason I claimed that is because it's one example, one country,
So
not one expert. That's not the problem.
So it's a claim.
No, not that it's claimed. It's only from one country. It's one example, not one expert.
All right, maybe.
That's time's up.
Next question. Not in my case. Time starts now. So my opponent's first case was that other religions lead away from a true religion. But this is mainly potential harms and benefits. Basically, what my opponent is saying, sometime down the road, they may eventually cause harms, and they may lead to eternal harms or eternal benefits. These aren't concrete, and it's not really what we're debating today. What we're debating today is how religion benefits society today. So that's what we must be looking at today in this debate. Now, moving on to my opponent's second contention, was that religion causes conflict. My opponent mainly claims that religion is the sole source of conflict and that it's the main reason that some conflicts happen. But there's a lot of times a lot of different factors that go into conflicts. And so what you need to do is can't look at this as a causation, but more as a correlation, which is a weaker link and should not be held as high as a card and should be held with less weight. Now, moving on to my case, my first contention was that religion encourages altruistic behaviors. My opponent stated that I only used American-centered cards, which is not true. My first card was not necessarily centered towards American culture or America in general, which was that religious people give more. And also my opponent says that it only helps religion and not others. But my other card says that religious Americans volunteered up to twice as much as non-religious people, which is a large difference. Now, my opponent also states that you don't see this type of giving from poorer countries. This is because they don't have as much to give, and that's the reason you can't give if you don't have anything to give. My second contention was that there is economic benefits from religion. My opponent said that, well, this could just be America and America's culture, but my quote says that because of America being a religious country, it gains $2.6 trillion per year. This is saying directly because of it being religious, it's gaining money. And this is also reliable because it comes from Forbes, a very high and accredited economic website and place for economics, and so should be held with high esteem. Now, moving on to my opponent's claim that since the wealthy countries are becoming rapidly secular is actually better benefited towards societies. And my opponent gives the examples, he didn't give the examples. My opponent gives the examples of Norway and Sweden and all of these. Basically what this means is, what he's saying is, since they're secular, that they're becoming more wealthy. But my card actually says, since they're religious, they're becoming more wealthy. So mine should be held with higher esteem. For all of these reasons, vote affirmative.
1. So I'm going to address my opponent's case and then my own case. First, beginning with his altruism card. He said his first card is not America-centric, but does not disclose where the card came from or where the author gets his evidence from. So we still do not know. We still cannot confirm that. Also, he says they are more likely to volunteer. So he does not actually address the fact that the difference in between religious giving and non-religious giving is due to giving to religious causes. But also you can explain volunteering away through the same lens. You can see that maybe if they volunteer at church, and that would add to their volunteer time, which would mean they're more likely to volunteer, but they're more likely to volunteer to help religion. Moving on to his second contention. So he says, I've only quoted him as saying America only. Well, he specifically mentions one example. He says religion has brought $2.9 trillion benefits to America, which is one example. Again, examples can only illustrate and never prove. And America, being the only example, really disproves his contention alone. But also we can see the fact that secular countries, such as Japan, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Norway, these are very wealthy countries, and all of them are some of the most atheistic countries on the planet. And so we don't even see a correlative effect between religiosity and wealthiness. Moving on to my own case. He says that these are potential harms and benefits and kind of vague and uncertain, but it's a definite argument that no matter what is true, whatever religion is true, or even if religion isn't true, it is a fact that religion as a whole will take and detract from it. And also, he accepted my framework, which is happiness is the goal in today's debate. And society's benefit is defined as how happy people are, and people will not be happy if they are suffering eternally due to picking the wrong religion. Moving on to my second contention. He says there is no direct link between religion and violence, but my first card, which he never addressed, was that religion causes division, and that, according to experts, religion causes an us versus them mentality. Since he never addresses, this is one of the direct links between religion and violence. But we can also see that religion directly causes violence, with the 5,000 people who died in just 1 month due to terrorist attacks by religious people, due to the 50 million people killed by the Catholic Church. These are religious bodies and organizations directly killing people, in addition to religion causing more war and causing religious wars. So for these reasons, I urge a negative ballot.
My opponent's two contentions were, one, the religion detracts from a true religion, and two, religion causes conflict. When you first look at his first contention, which is that other religions lead away from the true religion, basically what he's saying is, since there's a potential eternal harm, that we should disregard the benefits that happen because of religion. And his second contention was of religious conflict. But most of his examples were mainly ones that are correlative and not necessarily from causation, a direct link. Now moving on to, so if you look at my case, my opponent talks about how there will be death and brimstone all coming from religion, and that these are all going to happen. But this is simply not true. Now moving on to my case, I have two reasons why you should vote for affirmative. One, religion encourages altruistic behaviors. This shows that religion helps others, and it encourages and increases happiness because people are helping each other and are giving to the community, which is good, and increases happiness, which is the framework of this debate. And two, my opponent, my second contention, is that it economically benefits society. People are happier and healthier when there's more money in a society. And that also helps with happiness and overall well-being, which also goes towards the framework. So when you look at it, my opponent's case talks about potential fire and brimstone and how religion causes death and destruction. But this isn't necessarily true and is more correlative and can't be used as proven data. However, my side shows that religion causes happiness through giving and through economic benefits. And for all of these reasons and more, vote for affirmative.
Let's begin. Just a reminder, today's case is trying to find who provides the most happiness for society. Moving on to my opponent's case. He says that religion encourages altruism, but again, he hasn't shown that it is anything other than America-specific, an example of American exceptionalism, or America being an exception. And he hasn't shown the mitigating factor that religious people tend to give to religion, meaning religion is self-serving rather than helping others. And so the differences aren't as great as my opponent suggests. My opponent never addressed my attacks on the second contention, showing that secular countries are some of the wealthiest and the economic benefits are not as clear as my opponent would like you to believe, and that this is again an American-only example. Moving on to my case, he said again, I don't have clear, solid numbers and statistics. I can show you that there is no religion as a majority of the population. We can clearly see negatives that would be caused through belief in the wrong religion, or even belief in religion if religion isn't true. And moving on to my final contention, He said that there is no direct link between religion and violence and repeated it, but he never addressed the fact that I have shown a link. I've shown that experts have claimed and said that there is a direct link between religion and violence because religion causes an us versus them mentality, and it causes a unique incentive structure encouraging violence. And he ignores the fact that religious groups have caused violence, such as the Catholic Church in the Inquisition killing 50 million, or for example, such as the terrorists killing thousands every month. And my opponent never addressed these examples and the suffering they cause. So let's weigh impacts. As we can clearly see, and as I've shown, religion's impact on giving is iffy at best. And so religion may help giving a slight bit, about a 9% increase in giving. There's no example of religion increasing the benefits. So we have a 9% increase in giving. But also, religion causes thousands of deaths every month and has the potential to cause millions upon millions more. As well as religion causes people to be led astray and to either go to hell or cause other problems in that sense. And so as we can clearly see, and if we weigh these impacts, thousands upon thousands dying and millions dying, compared to a 9% increase in giving only in America, we can clearly see the negatives of religion far outweigh the benefits. So for these reasons, I strongly urge a negative ballot.